incredible flavours, even better stories. One pour, 10 minutes, Aussie bourbon lovers sharing bourbon with Australia.
So fun.
What are we having, H?
We're having a Michter's 10-year-old.
Bourbon. And we've got special guests again.
We do. To have this bourbon with, we have got some amazing guests with us today. We've got Andrea and Dan, all the way from Kentucky.
From Michter's.
Hi, everybody.
Hi,
Hey, everybody.
Thanks for joining us. And this is the 2024 10-year-old. Cheers.
Oh, cheers.
Yes, cheers.
It's breakfast here in Kentucky.
You're having breakfast. We're having a nightcap. It's so good to be drinking bourbon with you over the magic of the internet. Tell us about this release of the 10-year-old bourbon. This is so exciting to be sharing this with you.
So again, this one is, as you mentioned, our 2024 release of our 10-year-old single barrel Kentucky straight bourbon. It is a single barrel release, again, keeping up with our bourbons, that corn, that rye, that malted barley, but now it's been aged in a barrel for at least 10 years. But we aged to a taste profile, so it's never just 10 years in one day. It's always much older. So now it's going to get a lot of that influence from the barrel. But one thing we're very proud of, it's not an overly oaked bourbon. We feel it's just the right amount. And again, it's going to, love to hear what you're going to say, but a lot of those nice chocolate or toffee notes are going to come with it, along with some of those nice classic bourbon profiles that you would expect.
I think chocolate is the thing that I'm getting. It's like a chocolatiness is so lovely. And there's a nice oakiness as well, like a different oakiness to what you often get on bourbon. I don't know how to describe that, but there's like a lovely, gentle, chocolatey oakiness or something.
Yeah, I think it's just like a gentle maturity is the way I would describe it, because I think what's really beautiful about Michter's whiskeys as we age them up, as Dan was saying, this is over 10 years old. And the goal for us when we look at our planning horizon is, we're not pulling barrels down going, oh, this one's so good, let's put it in the 10-year lane. We're just aging up all of our barrels through our processes. And we want everything to kind of experience maturation in the same way so we can get consistent, repeatable outcomes. And when we're ready to do a 10-year release, we look and see what options we have. And it can be anywhere from, 10 years and a day, because the minimum age has to be 10 years. But there's nothing in the law that says you can't overage it. So we've had everything from 14, 15, 16. I think the oldest we've had in a 10-year bourbon bottle is 18 years old. So we are focused on what is the quality and the memorable nature of the drinking experience that someone's going to have, and how is it going to stand up through that drinking experience. So when we're tasting whiskeys, we're not just tasting them once and going, oh, it's fabulous, let's release it. We're going to spend time with that whiskey. Like, our expectation is somebody who purchases a bottle or a pour of 10-year bourbon, they're going to want to sit with it for a while. So how is this whiskey going to change in the glass over, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or even an hour that you would expect somebody to enjoy their pour? So all aspects of what we're assessing when we're looking at these whiskeys. But, for us, I think what's really interesting is you also get like this mid-palate fruit and interesting complexity. It's got a nice, really long finish to it. But again, it's not overly oaky. You don't experience a lot of that tannin. Tannin's great for wine, for structure. And I know Australians know a lot about their wine too. But in whiskey, tannin's not so great because it can be very astringent. It can be bitter. It can, attract a lot of that green wood characteristic that, isn't necessarily desirable for a Michter's product. So a lot of what we go through in the maturing side of the business with the natural seasoning and air drying of the wood for at least 18 months, the toasting before charring of the wood, the low entry strength of 51.5 ABV, which I know we talked about on another episode, but it's really key to creating a smooth, rich drinking experience. And then we don't have to add as much water after the aging process to get to bottling strength. And one of the signatures of Michter's is, even though, this is a lower entry strength, the reality is it has a tremendous amount of flavor and complexity. So a lot of people think that you have to have higher strength or higher ABV to get flavor. But, and that's certainly true, the strength can underpin flavor, but you don't have to have high strength to get beautiful flavor. And I think that's what's so luxurious about this whiskey, is it's not high strength, but it's so rich and so decadent, and it just is really, really, even the nose on it is it draws you in, like it attracts you to
I'm getting really dark
desire
chocolatey
to drink it.
flavor.
And to give you an idea of how important this is, I mean, just going back a couple of years to 2022, Andrea and I were going through our stocks for that year's release, and the stocks that we were going to use, which were beautiful, we actually kept coming back to the part, boy, we wish a couple markers in the whiskey were elevated a little more, like mouthfeel and aromatics. And so when it came time to actually bring forth the whiskey for tasting with our small tasting panel and ownership, we actually approached them and recommended that we hold the release for one more year so it can get that additional year of aging to increase those markers. And I still remember, again, Joe, our president, going, but this is really good whiskey. And we were like, yes, we agree with you. And by the way, at that time, it was already well over 10 years, several years over 10 years. And but ultimately, they decided to go with our recommendation, which, again, that just shows you the support that we have, that they were going to forgo a very successful release for our company just to add a little more quality to it. And, and again, that's what makes us proud to be here at Michter's. And
I think,
yeah.
I was going to ask then as well about, because heat cycling is another piece of what you kind of do, right? So 10 years is one piece of it, and you go beyond 10 years. But if you're heat cycling, then that's going to, we're talking about dog years versus human years, aren't we? Is that how that works?
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing that up, because it's something that, again, it's a very expensive aspect of what we do here. So in Kentucky, aging whiskey is very popular because we experience very dramatic seasonal changes here. And what happens is when the whiskey gets hot, then it's a volatile substance. So it gets a lot of pressure builds in the barrel, and it pushes the whiskey into the capillaries of the wood. Great. That's what we want. We want it to interact with the wood. When it cools down during the winter months, then it's flowing back towards the center of the cask. And it's pulling color and flavor and, just all this great, interesting extractives from the wood, which is wonderful. But during the winter, it's actually kind of cold and dry here. Versus summers, we have hot, humid summers. We have a little bit drier seasons throughout the year. But specifically during the winter, it's cold and dry. And as a result of that, the barrel and the whiskey aren't really interacting very much. So what we try to do is increase the interaction between the whiskey and the wood during the winter months. And to do that, we heat up our warehouses, and then we allow them to naturally cool down. And it's a way for us to increase the maturing quality of the final product. So we always say for every year that we heat cycle the whiskey, we get about an extra 6 months of maturing quality. So if we said the whiskey was 9 years old or 6 years old, let's say, then, based on 6 months extra maturing each year, we'd expect it to be on its flavor profile, its chemistry, its color, etc., something more on the order of 9 years old. So you now extrapolate that to the 10-year bourbon, which is already overaged, and then you add in the heat cycling element as well, you're getting a really rich, decadent product. And that's part of, what we're trying to, everything for us is about the drinking experience. It's what is making this product memorable for you. We spoke on another episode about how it triggers memories for you. Anybody who drinks 10-year, I feel confident. We've traveled all over the globe, and people are always like, my favorite release of 10-year was, and they fill in the year, and maybe it was the first year they had it, or, maybe they've had the opportunity to taste a few different ones. And, we have a consistent house style, rich, flavorful, easy drinking. These are single barrel products, so we want to have a little bit of variation in them, but we don't want to have tremendous, like the 10-year that you had 3 years ago is dramatically different than the 10-year you're having right now. We want you to have those experiences of what a single barrel can offer you, but we want it to sit within what people recognize as Michter's 10-year bourbon. So the other thing that we do that I think is very interesting is that we also custom chill filter all of our whiskeys, regardless of the age. Every product gets a customized chill filtration protocol designed for it, which is all about really accentuating every whiskey's best characteristics. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times people view chill filtration as a bad thing because they view it as it can impact color, flavor, texture, aroma, just the whole thing. So why would you even bother doing that? It's like, well, we start with an American whiskey barrel. It's first use. It's never been used before. It's fresh. It's been, naturally seasoned and air dried for at least 18 months. It's been toasted and charred, very rich and flavorful barrel. Whereas, other products of the world, they may reuse our bourbon barrels, frankly, many times over. So it's always like the tea bag analogy. The tea bag, you use it for the first time, you get a really rich product, cup of tea. Tea bag used the fifth time isn't as rich as the first time. It's just a reality. But there are, in terms of the chemistry of whiskey, there are some compounds that are very long chain molecular compounds, and there are some that are very short chain, but they all provide flavor. But just in your own mind, a longer chain compound is going to be more dominant than a smaller chain compound. And as a result of that, we want to try to bring forward all the beauty that the whiskey has to offer, not just the dominant compounds in your drinking experience. So that's why we customize the chill filtration protocol, everything from the type of equipment, the type of filters, the time, temperature, pressure, all there, tons of details, but just dialing in to really make an exceptionally, drinkable whiskey with a lot of flavor and texture and beauty is another production technique of Michter's.
The more you speak about the flavors and the techniques, and particularly with this 10-year, and you speak about the luxurious kind of and the kind of the complexity of it, the more fun I'm having enjoying it. It's so much fun to drink, and I agree with you. The mouthfeel is incredible. The flavors are so good. Are there things that we should be doing? I know some people talk about giving it time to sit just in the glass before you even have it. Should it have some air? What's a good tip when you've got an older bourbon? What's some good tips for us Aussies who might not have as much time under tension drinking old bourbon as some of some more seasoned Kentucky residents might have?
Well, this is kind of one of those loaded questions where everyone's going to have an opinion. I think we're very similar for most things, but as a distiller, I would say, I do traditionally drink my whiskeys neat, right? It would be very rare that you'd ever see me put a drop of water or a rock or something. But those are totally fine and great ways to enjoy a whiskey. And I think it has to be your preference. If you're the person purchasing it, please drink it the way that you enjoy it. And if that is by the drop of water, the rock, or in a cocktail. Now, I'll just say as the distiller, I will always ask you if it's your first time trying it, please try it neat so that way you at least understand the base of it and then go from there and really enjoy it. But, different glasses also give you different experiences. A Glencairn versus a rocks glass is going to give you just aromatically a different experience. So that's always fun to play around with. As you can, I don't know if the video adds 10 pounds or many kilograms, I guess, but I love to have the whiskey with food and do food pairings and things like that. So it really does offer, I know she's laughing at me, but it really, there's so many things that you can do. And, even with Michters in our lineup, whether it is our small batch bourbon, those nice caramels and vanillas, you mentioned rye earlier. It's a Kentucky style rye. So as the rye content's closer to the 51%, there's the additional corn and malted barley we add really provides a nice balance of sweetness and spice. And we have our unblended American whiskey, which is a very sweet dessert-like whiskey. So there's really something for everybody. And then how you choose to enjoy it along that experience, trying it neat, and then, progress from there. And then also, like I said, there's a lot of fun things that you can do, whether it's with the food pairings, candy pairings, and so forth.
And
Sorry,
if
that
you
might
were
have been a little more than you had asked there.
No, that was great.
There was a lot in that.
Oh, really?
Lots of great information.
I've had to ask if I can be back onto the show.
It's good to have you back, Dan.
More serious like
She is always making jokes. I'm the one trying to be serious. This is real serious stuff that we're doing here. It's like I said, it's like I said, whiskey. We're not solving the world's problems, but it really does bring people together. The laughter, all of this, it creates beautiful moments, and I'm glad to be a part of that.
I think it's really interesting, a lot of the things that Dan brought up about the drinking experience, even coming back to when we're tasting whiskeys for release, so much of, even if you just think about food and drinking and, the whole experience, it's about what are you smelling? You think about when someone sets a plate of food in front of you and you're like, oh my gosh, it smells so good. And, the same thing with whiskey, when you're nosing it and you're like, oh, it smells so good, because it draws you in. That aroma can be such a powerful, influence on what you're about to experience. And then carrying that through is what's incredibly important. Like, aroma is one part of it, but then when it hits your tongue, we want a dynamic experience as it moves across your palate. We don't want you to just be left with, oh, yeah, I tasted one thing and, and then it finished and that was it. We want you to be able to feel something that really touches you in a special way, where it's like, wow, there was so much flavor, and it makes you desire to talk about it. Like, you want to share with someone, like, oh my gosh, this tastes so good, and here's why. And it's maybe the finish is so delightful, or the way it moved across your palate, or the aroma, and all of that together creates your drinking experience. And so I always just tell people, however you want to drink your whiskey is absolutely fine. But I do encourage people, try the whiskey neat first, so you understand the beauty of, just the pure nature of the whiskey. And then whatever you want to do, if you want to make a 10-year bourbon, Manhattan, go, more power to you. Enjoy it the way you want to enjoy it and have fun with it. But I think the whiskey took years to develop in the barrel, and there's something just really pure about trying it the way, it took so long to come to fruition. and then, you take it from there and make it your own. The only other thing I would say, adding drops of water is very common in other styles of whiskey. And part of that helps you bring the aromatics to your nose. It also helps drop the strength a little bit. But, our whiskeys are not always, at high strength. And even the ones that we produce that are at barrel strength, they're very drinkable, very approachable. You can nose them easily and have an amazing experience. And that all goes back to that lower entry strength in the barrel is how we start. So it really creates a smoother experience. And then, I tell people when you get up with a lot of age in whiskey, you do need to be careful adding drops of water, because the water can actually break the bonds in the spirit. And when that happens, you can't recover it at that point. So that's, again, the reason why taste it neat, and then you adjust it how you want, but just be careful, because adding water can ultimately break the spirit, and it will change dramatically. But
and just one thing to add to that, I mean, just think of the last 10 minutes that our 10-year bourbons continue to open up. It's basically told a story, or it's telling a story.
Yeah.
And even like for me, my experience as one of the tasting notes will be maple syrup for our 10-year bourbon. I believe it starts to really develop the farther we let it open up, and now I get more of that presence. So again, as a whiskey opens up, a good whiskey is going to tell a great story.
I was going to say maple syrup. Yeah, I was going to say maple syrup, and there's a I don't know if you would have it in the US. There's a lolly called or a candy here called musk sticks, which is like a pink musk flavored candy.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a bit of that now that it's opened up a bit. It's kind of a really interesting kind of note, particularly on the nose. But yeah, it's definitely changed as we've been talking. Yeah.
Yeah. And out of
awesome.
all the amazing Michter's bottles, do you guys have a personal favourite?
Are you allowed to name a favorite child?
That's really hard to say, because I think that, your experiences change, with your mood. It's very different to have something like you're doing right now. It's the evening, you're having a nightcap versus, the morning experience that we're having here right now. But I would say the most that we drink in my own home is the bourbon. Like, we're big bourbon drinkers. Something like a 10-year bourbon would be, a really special occasion type of whiskey. But I love them all for different reasons. And, there's such a passion that goes into, I mean, if you haven't learned anything through these episodes, Dan and I are super passionate about what we do. Yeah. We love to have fun, and we want to bring joy, and that's what we're all about. But we are super passionate about the discipline of what we do. And, Dan's not just a master distiller by name. It's not, yes, he travels, he talks to people. I do the same, but we really do. We're invested in the team, the processes to which we operate, how we do things are all incredibly important to us. And, we want people to enjoy these whiskeys all over the world. And we're extremely, grateful to those who drink them, but it's hard for me to pick one individually that is my all-time best of. Obviously something like Celebration that's sitting there up on the top shelf in the red box. That is a spectacular whiskey drinking experience that I think, in my opinion, is one of the best whiskeys I've ever drank in the world. And I'm proud and honored to be able to work on that whiskey. But I think, any of these can apply to an amazing drinking experience. And that's kind of the care that we take with all of them. We know we treat every bottle up there as if we're making Celebration every time.
Yep.
So good. Dan,
Do you have
I've
an
heard
opinion, Dan?
you're a rye drinker, anyways. Because is that your go-to? You have a bottle of rye.
I do agree with Andrea because of we're fortunate to have quite a few SKUs there. But what's great about our lineup is that each one provides a unique experience. Sometimes you'll see where something kind of overlaps and you really, from one to another, there's not a lot of difference. I feel like we give a unique experience for each one of our expressions. Yes, if you would say, oh, hey, the daily whiskey, I do really enjoy a rye whiskey, and especially our Kentucky style, because it allows it to be, again, a Kentucky style is very approachable, but still lets those very, very nice, whether, floral, honeys, citrus, spice characteristics come through. So I love that too. Of course, as we're going, different releases like the 10-year releases, we also have what we call a legacy series, Shanks and Baumburgers, which pay homage to that early Pennsylvania history in the 17 and 1800s. Shanks is a sour mash whiskey. Baumburgers is a Kentucky straight bourbon. Each year we're going to do something a little different. It allows us to have some fun and innovation since 2018. So when you see a vintage on the label, each year it's going to be a little different, whether it's in the mash bill or using different types of oak along the way. So again, unique experiences is what we're doing. But yeah, those are fun ones, the Baumburgers. Celebration, again, given what the product is, the whiskey is, and for the 2022 release, it was parts of 7 barrels, 3 Kentucky straight bourbon, 4 Kentucky straight rye, ranging from over 12 years to well over 30 years. It's a project that takes over a year. We've only done that release 4 times. They're never to be duplicated, and they're extremely rare. Only 328 for the world for 2022. And so it's just an amazing project to be a part of with our team. Because so much work goes into it. But yeah, sorry, I know that doesn't answer your question, but any of our rye products, of course, but they're all
my
talking for
favorite
2
job.
minutes. They're like, did they answer the question?
we know at the end of the day we can just wear you down, and then 20 minutes later, I think they liked rye. I think
everyone can make their own assessment, right? Or you make your own.
Everyone will pick their own favorites.
It's so good. I feel I was gonna quickly see if you had a favorite, but I think that we fall into the category a bit like you guys, which is that there's so many good ones. I can sometimes come in. We're recording this from our study at home, and we're right next to where our whiskies are. And I sometimes come in and stare at them, and I go, I would like one of each, please. They're all wonderful, and I don't know which one I feel most like now.
Mood plays such a big part in your experience. So when, like you said, where you're at, where you grab what bottle, what shelf, what mood are you in? Are you, and so, but the best part is you're grabbing a Michter's.
Yeah. You can't go wrong grabbing a Michter's.
I so often am grabbing a Michter's, Dan. I wish I was making it up to make you feel good, but I'm not.
He's telling the truth.
But hey, thanks so much for joining us for this. It's so special to be sharing a 10-year bourbon with you guys, and thanks for the generosity of your time and your experience and that. It's so good to talk about such a special pour and so much care and thought and all the time and everything that's gone into this. So thanks for joining us. It's been so good to have you. Hope we can have you back again sometime soon. And next time you're down under, we should have a pour of this somewhere at a good bar in Melbourne too. That'd be great as well.
That'd be
Cheers.
fantastic.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you're connected with us on TikTok, Instagram and YouTube, and stay connected with us by clicking subscribe on your favourite podcast app.